Constitution. He reads that crap.
Well, welcome back here. We're talking debt limit showdown, and one of our guests here, of course, Congressman Simmons, of course, breaking out the Constitution here, a dog-eared version. All right, listen, we're going to bring in some calls here, too, as well, to see on the trust factor who they do and who they don't. And, Andrew, I promise you first comment when we come back, and I got to say, Jeannie's right in that at the end of the day, no, but wait. She's right that politically, the Tea Party got what they wanted. I don't know as a nation, reflective of the public, that we're in our best interest. And if everybody played by the same set of rules is hold the hostage and call our bluff, that we're all better off. Because if you pick a group that says, I'll be obstructionary, I won't in any way compromise, and if you don't give it my way, you deal with the consequences of a country that goes into a default. I don't know what responsible president would say, you know what, I'll make a political point and let that happen. I think by doing so, he may have taken the higher ground. Politically, it's a loser. But it's interesting. I think while Jeannie's right, I think we lose.
I think she's right in a very short-term view of it, and I think
very narrow.
I think back to the late 90s when a very right-wing group of Republican members of Congress pushed for a policy that even moderate members of their own party objected to and warned them not to do, but they went ahead and they impeached the president, and they didn't get him removed from office. And I don't think that exactly is one of the highlights of Republican governance of the last 20 years. It's a short-term political victory on their part, perhaps, if they are able to carry the day. It doesn't play in the long term, and it doesn't play with the American public.
And well, guys, if I could, I just want to read a quote that we heard last night, and then I want to bring you back in, Congressman, because when in trouble, quote the great communicator, and President Obama did just that last night. This is C6, guys, if we could bring it up. Thank you. He said, would you rather reduce deficits and interest rates by raising revenue from those who are not now paying their fair share, or would you rather accept larger budget deficits, higher interest rates, and higher unemployment? And I think I know your answer. Last night, the president quoted Reagan, who actually had 18 times raised the debt limit without incident, as our guest said, working with Tip O'Neill across the aisle, believe it or not, compromise in Washington. And the president went on to ask and answer, guys, that I think, unbelievably, nobody ever thinks about, which was, how can you ask a student to pay more for college before you ask a hedge fund manager to stop paying taxes at a lower rate than the secretaries? Something Warren Buffett, by the way, said not long ago. Why is the concept, when 3-to-1 Americans say there should be some shared sacrifice, why is that removed from the table so quickly? The public wants it. I think most of us agree there's equity or some fairness to it. We've never had a gap between have and have not bigger in this country. And with nearly 10% unemployment, I don't know how that's not a political winner.
Certain haves are doing well, certain have-nots are doing well, but the middle class is getting squeezed, and that's really what it boils down to. When you define the rich as anybody making $250,000 or more, and you don't count in the small businessman that files his business under subchapter S of the federal code, in other words, that revenue is his business revenue, then what you're doing is you're squeezing the middle class.
You and I both know there's loopholes here, not for the guy making $250 grand and $1. We're talking about
that includes the Koch brothers. The Koch Industries is an S corporation.
Yeah, but you know, we tried a long time ago,
the 5th and 6th wealthiest men in America, and they're influencing corporate policy.
And all the alternative minimum tax did was not deal with a couple of hundred millionaires. All it did was stick it to the middle class.
What I want to do is not get in the weeds, and I just want to do a more broader question, which is, I think the general public says, wait a second, let's see what's happened since 2008. My 401k got banged. I got screwed. I can't pay for the college kids' tuition here. The factory jobs now got shipped overseas.
The
middle class is taking.
Are you rich or are you the middle class?
I don't know what I'm called anymore, but all I know is I tell you this much.
You're the middle class.
I know this much. That if I'm doing good, I can pay what I paid under Clinton. I can do that. And I'm not going to go bankrupt.
Me too.
The idea of paying a 39% income tax rate, I'll lower the corporate tax rates to 25%. Makes sense for me. But why should I get rewarded if I send jobs overseas? And why should I be paying less taxes than my secretary if I can play free and easy with a code? It doesn't make sense. And you know what? I think there's a sense of fairness where people say, you're going to go after my Social Security, you're going to go after my Medicare. Why is this guy getting a free ride? It just doesn't fit.
Wait. How about the math here? The simple math is that we have a problem, a crisis, a debt crisis. It cannot be solved with cuts alone. We need more revenue. And here, the congressman, with all due respect, is that we're talking about maybe ratcheting up the top bracket for the rich. And of course, people say, well, $200,000, $250,000 is not rich.
Socialism.
It doesn't matter. Even if it was $1 million, the argument would be the same. That the Tea Party, the conservative fiscal Republicans cannot and will not even look or consider that. And so we always get into this debate over getting in the weeds on this issue.
If you want to increase revenues, you got to help small business. Nobody's talked about small business. 70% of the jobs created in America today are created in companies that are 20 or less people. They are not sending jobs overseas. Their jobs are local. In Connecticut, 73% of all businesses are 9 or less employees.
I'm a small business owner.
That's where you got to focus.
I'm a small business owner, 20 employees or less, and it costs me, what, $1,000, $1,500 just for healthcare per month. I mean, that is a phenomenal amount of money to pay.
Is in here
and
to help you?
I can afford it. And there's nothing. But I will say, just to take it back a little bit to the politics of all of this.
Republicans don't like that when you say you can afford it and you were willing to pay it. That blows everything up.
You're right.
So for you, it's not a sacrifice.
It's a tough sacrifice. We're not getting into a motorcycle accident. But to bring it back to the politics a little bit, and we talk about middle class. There are a lot of articles right now being written about what's happening in Black America. And what's interesting is that you're seeing a lot of African American middle class start to actually do worse.
Yes.
Number one, they're moving out of the North and into the South, into more red states. Number one. Number two, they're actually falling out of the middle class. In fact, a lot of those jobs that used to be available, particularly union jobs, are no longer available. So the gap between black and white income has actually
never been higher in the last 30 years it came out.
It's grown exponentially. And I say that to say that the one issue that I do believe that the president has going into the election is that a good chunk of his base is not particularly happy because they're doing very poorly right now.
I mentioned about the voter here, and I asked people at home to participate tonight because this comes down to trust. You heard the president last night say, call your congressman. Some people thought they had a whiff of desperation to it, maybe more than just a whiff. Let me see who the folks at home do trust in this debate, and I want to thank them in advance for holding. Let's start off in Philadelphia. We got Gail on the line. Gail, if you have to choose here, and I think the two faces of this, the president and Speaker Boehner, who do you trust more has America's best interest in mind?
I would say the president.
And why is that?
Because Boehner's acting like a moron along with the Tea Party, and you can't tax the poor folks and not tax the rich folks.
All right, well, tell me how you really feel, Gail. Let's go to Lisa calling us out of Smithtown. Same question, Lisa. Go ahead.
Definitely the president. I trust the president more, and I don't trust Boehner. And believe it or not, we were a little upset with the president because we felt that he backed down with the last deal he made with Boehner, and we are hoping and praying that he doesn't back down this time. But I'm so ashamed of this country right now, and the way they're acting in Washington. I'm just so disgusted. And let's not forget, the whole world is looking at us right now, and it can't look pretty. It just can't. It's shameful.
No, and I thank you, Lisa and Gail, and all the other folks whose calls obviously I couldn't get to. Just a quick sample. I think we proved it with those two calls. They're behind the president. That's it.
Yeah.
I've solved this. Now call your congressman and let her know.